So why would you have science in a VBS program?
VBS stands for Vacation Bible School, which is the way AIG indoctrinates children into a fundamentalist, religious, anti-science way of thinking instead of letting them enjoy their time away from school. And despite the claim, they do not have a science program, because they can't. But I'm getting ahead of myself.
Well, as a PhD scientist myself...
No, you're not. You may have the PhD, and as far as I know, it's legitimate, but you are not a scientist. This is Dr. Georgia Purdom, a staff member of Answers in Genesis. Her bio on their website says that she holds a PhD in molecular genetics from Ohio State University. Okay, I'll call her doctor, but she is not a scientist. The word science is both a noun and a verb. It's a verb when used to describe the method of science because it's an action that you're undertaking. As such, it's a process of inquiry into the universe and everything in it. There are no restrictions on what can be investigated, but there are limits. So far as we know, we are limited to investigating the natural. We have no evidence for the supernatural, so it is as yet unable to be subjected to scientific scrutiny. But if someone could provide evidence that the supernatural exists, then science would be duty-bound to investigate it. And you can bet your sweet ass that scientists will be all over it, like flies on horse manure. But Dr. Purdom does have restrictions. As a member of AIG, she is required to limit her work to the supernatural realm and must strictly adhere to the Christian Bible as the only authority in all matters. The way that AIG throws out the phrase secular worldview as an insult so often makes me think that they're not even allowed to have anything other than a biblical worldview in something as mundane as rolling down a car window. Therefore, she's not doing science. She's not allowed to do science by her own conscience or by her employer, and therefore abrogates her right to be called a scientist. In my not so humble opinion.
I realize the importance of starting with God's Word when we look at God's world. It really helps us understand and interpret it properly when we start with God's ideas and God's Word and not man's ideas.
See what I mean? And it seems like she's proud to use her credentials that way.
And so our kids are bombarded with scientific ideas.
Bombarded with scientific ideas? She's saying that like it's a bad thing.
That are not necessarily scientific.
Yeah, because of course it is.
And so part of what we do at Answers VBS is get them to sort out what God's Word says, where it touches on science.
It doesn't. This is Stacia McKeever, who according to the AIG website has bachelor's degrees in biology and psychology. But when it comes to actually doing any science, forget it. The person taking the tickets in the parking lot, who is also bound by the statement of faith that AIG requires all employees to have, it could probably teach you just as much.
And we do that in our science and crafts guide. So there's a science experiment every day that kids can do so that when they go back to their science classes or whatever, they can remember.
See that water slide out of the window? They can get a better grasp of science by riding that than they ever would with AIG's force-fed, unscientific propaganda. The physics of forces in motion, the chemistry of how water is hopefully kept clean through multiple recyclings, the biology of the germs in it if it isn't kept clean, and so on.
Hey, God's Word touches on this scientific program.
Again, it doesn't.
If you want to find out more, go to answersvbs.com.
That's answersvbs.com.
Remember, that's wronganswersvbs.com, because a child's scientific curiosity must be stifled and destroyed.